Hello. Huh. What's going on here? All right, guys. Welcome. Let me make sure all of our technology's working. Okay. All right, that's good. That sounds good. Let's turn this down. So, welcome back. Tony Restores TSR Go Green live stream. Sorry, we're running a little bit late, guys. Wednesday nights at 7 is usually the time, but you know, we have had some technical difficulties with the stream and YouTube being difficult, but we seem to be going good here now, guys, so very cool. So we're gonna go ahead and start out with the bad news first, and then a good note. So we'll, you know, pessimism into optimism. All right, guys, that's the motto here. So obviously, the topic on everybody's mind is the horrific situation in Ohio. Here, I'm not a big fan of the New York Times, but here we are. How has the EPA allowed this horrific situation to continue in Ohio? You know, these big companies just do whatever they want, basically, and no consequences. They have no consequences. I'm sure nothing will happen to Norfolk Southern. No changes will really come on a grandiose scale from the top down. That's why it's so important that we here, you know, individually, one-on-one, make the changes in our own lives. You know what I mean? So I can do nothing for you other than work on myself, and you can do nothing for me other than work on yourself. And so that is saying the principle applies to, you know, the environmentalism and stuff like that. So stay positive, guys. We can beat back these corporations that are destroying the planet with a little bit of focus and a little bit of strategy. There's nothing that we can't accomplish. So, you know, by all means, I have no problem. I don't care if this channel never goes anywhere and is permanently shadow banned, you know, from getting to the masses. I just want to build a community of people who are really excited about restoring the planet and getting smart about our behaviors on how we can fix the current mess that we're in, as far as you know, the omni side of our environment. So we have freedom of speech. Use it, guys. Let's use our freedom of speech. Let's call out these companies by name. Let's call out individuals and CEOs by name. Let's put pressure in every way possible that we can on these people. We need a green revolution. We need it. We need a green revolution. We need a green revolution. We need a green revolution. There's just no other way to put it. There's no other way to put it. And it's going to come in many forms and have many faces. But we need a green revolution. So that being said, our best tool in this green revolution is going to be the pen. The pen in our mouths and freedom of speech is always mightier than the sword. So we never want to resort to violence. Violence is for them to use. That is their tool and their weapon. And we will always have the high ground by never allowing our movement to become violent. We can do much more good through nonviolent movements. That being said, when you're using the pen as an analogous to the mind, pen is an internal thing, whereas if you're using the sword, that's your body. That's an external form of quote unquote warfare. So, but we can fight back. Our enemies are going to be militant. We can be militant too without using violence, but we have to use the pen and channel and focus our minds and get our hearts in the right place as well. Learn a little bit of empathy and stop being so self-obsessed. Our whole culture is just a self-obsessed, consumerist, indulgence type society here in the West, as well as specifically in the United States. So we need to curb those bad tendencies and focus more on the internal parts of life and again ask ourselves what we can do, as JFK would say, for our country or ourselves, and in this case our planet. So just remember, never resort to violence, guys. Let's get together as one and call them out via means like this. Just fight our revolution with the pen, not the sword. There's plenty of good people in jail who have fallen because of misuse of the sword. So that being said, our enemies have many different ways to combat our movements. So we cannot allow them to bring us to violence. So, like I said, let's just move away from materialism, because materialism leads to this. Materialist society that we live in leads to this. It results in train crashes with highly dangerous toxic chemicals that destroy everything in sight. Human beings, plant species, soil, fish, animals of all kinds, insects. I mean, our carnage knows no bounds with these dioxins, these I mean, look at this. If this doesn't strike fear into the hearts and minds of all of you and motivate you to get inspired and get active about making changes, I don't know what will. My only suggestion will be, again, use the pen, focus on your internal growth, focus less on external type distractions, and read more. I'm not talking about audiobooks, even those are good. Podcasts, live streams like this are okay, but really read, really pick up a book. It doesn't matter what it is, and dive into it head first. Immerse yourself in the ancient art of reading a book, and it will kind of tell you and it'll allow you to hone your internal craft, so to speak. So it'll give you more tools to be able to wield the pen and use your freedom of speech against our enemies instead of using the sword. That will be our way of being militant. That's our way of fighting back, is sharpening our minds. So cool, guys. That being said, I mean, I don't want to really spend too much time on the negative stuff. This is just a disaster. I really hope and pray for all of the victims that are in the onslaught. It's not just this one isolated incident too. It's happening everywhere, all over the world. Things like the EPA, they exist like many other government agencies, more to cover up than to actually address the issues. Our government has not wanted to address this kind of stuff for decades. The revolving door between politics and the private sector and corporations is the reason for all this. The companies, the pursuit of profit, and continuing to create value for investors. It's the real reason why this is happening. So, troublesome missteps, delays, just endless amounts of problems that arise from the situation we've created and the way we allow our culture to grow. So, the good news is that it's fixable. We just got to hold the right people accountable and build the right systems within our own community that eventually will branch out on a macro level to the bigger picture, to the world. So, yeah. On to the next horrible scenario. Again, I'm going to shout out Dane Wigington and his channel Geo-Engineering Watch. Please go check out his documentary on YouTube, or I'm not even sure if YouTube still has it up or even allows it up, but it's The Dimming. It's called The Dimming. Dane Wigington has been calling out government agencies for almost 2 decades now for this. We were called conspiracy theories for decades, but this is reality. The chemtrails are in fact real. This is from MIT. There are dozens of startups that are now testing spraying iron particles above the ocean to fight climate change. So this is called SAP programs, SAI programs, the stratospheric aerosol injection programs. They are chemtrails, and it's, we'll let the article describe here. Within the next 18 months, a Palo Alto-based startup wants to begin releasing a small quantity of iron-rich particles into the exhaust stream of a shipping vessel across ocean. Excuse me. Blue Dot Change hopes to determine whether the particles will accelerate the destruction of methane, one of the most powerful greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. If it works, the 4-person company hopes to begin spraying the particles on commercial scales within a year after that. So this is something that all of these companies are fainting doing. They've been spraying stuff on us and the environment for decades, guys. Potentially even going back to the 60s and the 50s in a post-World War II era where they were experimenting with ways to manipulate the weather as a weapon, whether that be, with floods or earthquakes and causing earthquakes, that kind of stuff. I'm not sure really the scale of the technology that they have been able to achieve now, but it seems to be that this is now becoming popularized, and they're slowly leaking this out into the public to normalize this behavior. As Dane Wigington said, above more than the East Palestine type disasters, or the Gulf oil spill, or all those giant Chernobyl, all these giant disasters, more than anything, the number one contributor to the omni side of the environment and the planet is geoengineering. Do your research on geoengineering. One of the main things that they use in this geoengineering experiments is these SAI programs and the spraying of nanoparticulates of heavy metals with the idea that that's somehow going to magically reflect some of the sun's harmful radiation back out into space and reduce the carbon and greenhouse effect on the planet, on the surface. It's lunacy. It's lunacy. It's not backed up by any fact. They're literally, like I said, they've been doing this forever anyway. And now it's being popularized for the mainstream. The basic concept behind the so-called iron salt aerosol method is that if we release iron-rich particles that contain chloride in the air, sunlight will irradiate them, producing chlororadiols, uncharged molecules with electron available for bonding. These in turn can drive reactions that convert methane into carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. But it's also possible the same particles can produce dangerous gases, spawn phytoplankton blooms, or brighten marine clouds, the last of which would muddy the line between greenhouse gas removal and the more controversial field of solar geoengineering. So right here, guys, even in the article, right from MIT, they are admitting that this is going to cause massive damage. I mean, it's pure unadulterated lunacy. Lunacy, guys. So, what can you really do, sadly, other than just address it. Use your freedom of speech. Call it out. Call out this nonsense when you can. I've been called crazy for 15 to 20 years since I reached the age of reason as a teenager that we live in an insane asylum, as Dane Wigington would say, when it comes to how we treat the environment and the planet. It is literally an insane asylum, and science is the biggest contributor to that. The new priests and priestesses of science in their white lab coats that everybody worships at the altar to, many, many times are wrong. And in fact, in situations like this, where they, make up statistics and make up data to fit a narrative, for profit most of the time. They have to continue to receive grants somehow. So, I mean, here we go, guys. Here we go. This is just insane. It's absolutely insane what we're doing to this planet, what we're doing to ourselves and these ecosystems. So, I hate to be, I don't like being pessimistic, the whole time. That's one, if Dane ever watches this, that's one bit of feedback I would give you, Dane, that, try not to be so pessimistic on every episode. I know it's almost impossible because the onslaught of these corporations to permanently destroy the planet is never ending in the pursuit of profit. So, but again, we're doing what we can, guys. We're doing what we can. So there are some good stories. We'll move on to the next one here. Supposedly, we have a record-breaking year of 40% of its carbon-free sources in 2022. Now, when they say carbon-free, who really knows what that means? Like a lot of times these windmills end up not being as green as we thought. We need to continue to make technologies like this more efficient. I'm not anti, green technology revolution by any means, but I do think we need to approach every system in this industry smart. With smart people, with smart, slow decision making, because we don't want to spend so much and invest so much in something that actually ends up being worse, which is exactly what this is here with this solar geoengineering nightmare, where they're spraying harmful aerosol nanoparticulates into this air, which then settle on soil, settle on trees, settle in the ocean. It's a disaster. Nothing about this idea makes sense at all. And anybody that is claiming that it's a good idea is honestly being silly. It's reckless. This is a reckless way to try to fix the situation that we're in. But, as this article is going to go over, there are other options. So we just need to choose the right options and think smart and act smart. So, this figure combines renewable generation. So this is, I'm sure this is a pretty wide, this is a very wide, broad brush that they put under the green, carbon-free industry. But solar, wind, hydro, and nuclear power. Nuclear and hydro power remain at similar levels to previous years, so the majority of this increase comes from wind and solar. The data comes from Sustainable Energy in America 2023 Fact Book, which pulls from various sources on U.S. energy. It is produced by the Business Council for Sustainable Energy. The report also shows that the electric vehicle EV sales surged by 50% in 2022, which nearly 982,000 cars sold. In 2022, constructions of renewable facilities in the U.S. slowed slightly compared to the previous years due to supply chain. Despite this, renewables broke records, meaning 13% of U.S. energy demand, 23% of electricity demand, their highest levels at. So, I mean, pretty cool, guys. This outlook is even brighter for 2023, with Biden's landmark Inflation Reduction Act promoting the clean energy transition passed in August 2022. It allocates $369 billion to renewable energy and reducing greenhouse gas emissions primarily through tax credits for all levers of the energy transition sector. Towards the end of 2022, this legislation saw solar, EV, battery, and other clean energy sectors announce plans for new manufacturing plants on U.S. soil. It also sparked interest in green hydrogen industries like oil refining and steel production. Nuclear power is a contentious topic among sustainable energy advocates. It's considered carbon-free as nuclear reactors don't produce CO2 emissions. However, it relies on uranium as fuel, the mining and refining of which energy is intensive. So yeah, I mean, can you really consider nuclear power safe green energy? Chernobyl is the greatest example of that not being the case. And in so many instances, we just keep building these new nuke plants on fault lines or wherever have you. And nukes are relatively safe. There's plenty of data there, and I'm not the only way to power, give enough energy to 7 billion people is to continue to invest and research in nuclear power, at least for the time being. I like to view nuclear power as similar to oil and all these other things that can potentially be very, very harmful to the planet. So that being said, I'm not big on the nuclear. I don't really see how this is carbon neutral because there's so much risk involved with continuing to build nuclear power plants everywhere. I mean, that's another big thing. If we're thinking long term here, it's not going to work. We need to change behaviors that make us use less power. Is the best thing I could say. Which there's a million different ways to do, but yeah, so there's nuclear power, nuclear fusion. I mean, this is why we need to continue to develop these things. I'm not anti any of these things. Again, I just think it's a nuanced conversation. Climate change and the climate catastrophe is a very nuanced situation. Climate change deniers or climate catastrophe deniers are the most insane people in the world. The facts are right in front of your face on so many different levels. So, again, there's going to be a bunch of different ways and a bunch of different opinions that populations have about how to go about doing this green revolution. But mainly we have to have it on our minds. It's got to be at the front of our minds. How do we make sure we maintain the planet and its beauty for our children and our children's children? That means we have to approach everything instead of, with cleverness, we need to use kindness. That should be our number one thought, and kindness and empathy should come before keen and cleverness as we approach this precipice. So as we move on here, Europe's also doing their green energy revolution with carbon free, but again, a lot of this stuff, if you really do your research, doesn't end up actually being carbon free. But we really don't have a choice as long as we stop immediately burning coal and doing really, really bad things, really dumb ideas, and get off oil as quickly as possible, and again continue to explore nuclear and nuclear power and nuclear fission and all these different things, but at the same time stop building massive nuclear plants everywhere. We don't want that either. Again, we need to start at local levels and local communities. I know there's mass movement towards cities, but cities are, at the end of the day, one of the biggest reasons for all this energy soak. I think if you have the ability, you should try growing as much food of your own food as you can, reducing the demand for large, big scale industrial agriculture. If you own a home, convert your stupid ass Kentucky bluegrass lawn into your own garden, so you feed your neighbors, feed yourselves. Instead of spending money on at your local grocery store, paying an insane inflated rate for what ends up being a lot of times poison anyway. So again, guys, we have to do stuff like that. We have to think outside the box. We really have to attack these problems from tons of different angles. So cool. Moving on to happy. More good stories here. Yeah, again, and when you're at these grocery stores, make sure you're buying local from small businesses if you can. Try to stay away from the bigger brands. Family farms are the essential lifeblood of this entire nation and always have been. So let's move on to a happy story, huh? So let's move on here. Beth Corum is a fourth-generation farmer living in Scottsbluff. Although she grew up on her family farm, she was not always sure that this was the life she wanted to pursue. I left for 37 years because I wanted to experience something different, but I told myself to never forget. She went to college to study music, but after taking an ecological course, she said her mind was open to the reality of what was happening to the earth. She was soon introduced to the concept of biodynamics. Biodynamic farming combines the relationship between plants, animals, and soil to use farms' resources instead of importing materials. It includes herbs, minerals, cow manure to fertilize crops, and growing most of the feed and bedding for the livestock. I found out about a couple intentional communities where they had biodynamic training, Corum said. These communities were run by a social initiative called Camp Hill, a worldwide organization of communities including people with and without special needs, working to foster holistic wellness and growing the majority of the community's food using biodynamic processes and practices. It's here where she learned the fundamentals surrounding biodynamic farming. The history of biodynamics. The early concepts of biodynamic farming were formed in 1924 by Austrian scientist and philosopher Rudolf Steiner. This guy right here, guys, I cannot recommend Rudolf Steiner enough. He's absolutely incredible. And he also was like this says, philosopher. He's very big into spirituality. In fact, let me go grab one of his books here. So, that being said, Rudolph can be difficult to read sometimes. He's very, very detailed, but this is his book here. This is actually a collection of 4 books of his. You can get this on Amazon, or where did I get this? I think it was Amazon actually, but an outline of the occult science, Christianity as a mystical fact, the way of initiation, and initiation its results. So, truly an incredible author. Can't recommend him enough. So check him out. I'll put a link in the description for this as well. So he gave a series of lectures in response to a complaint by a group of European farmers who were noticing a quick decline in soil conditions, crop quality, animal health due to the use of chemical pesticides. Steiner presented the farm as a living organism that is self-sustainable, with its crop growth, soil vitality, and livestock all interconnected. In 1928, the Demeter Biodynamic Standard for certification was established and is currently regulated by Demeter International. In the United States, Demeter USA manages biodynamic certification. Farming is a significant part of the impact on the environment. Biodynamics has some tools that can bring back the vitality of the soil, said Everett Lundquist, Director of Certification for Demeter USA and co-owner of Common Good Biodynamic Farm in Raymond, Nebraska. Lundquist founded Common Good in 1996 along with his wife Ruth Chantry, who is board president of the Nebraska Sustainable Agricultural Society. So, Lundquist studied agronomy in college while doing a comparison study between 2 farms, he first learned about biodynamic agriculture. It was the piece that had been missing in my college studies, Lundquist said. The difference between organic and biodynamic. While organic farming mainly focuses on farming without synthetic chemicals, biodynamic agriculture takes it one step further. For the certification for biodynamic, you look at the whole farm. So, it requires that the whole farm certified, not just a specific crop. For organic farms, one field could be organic, the other could be conventional. Biodynamic farms work to not only produce high-quality food, but also to improve the health of the entire farm ecosystem. This is what we need to do on a global scale, guys. A global scale. Biodynamic farms must meet all organic requirements as well as the additional standards laid out by Demeter. This includes dedicating at least 10% of the land and wildland reserve, generating the farm's fertility and using biodynamic preparations like field sprays and composting. The goal is sustainability, where the waste of one part of the farm becomes the energy for another part. Instead of having a huge carbon footprint, you're actually refocusing on having a carbon negative footprint. With minimal use of imported materials, the farm generates its own fertility instead of relying on transport fertilizer, unlike many organic farms. Although biodynamic farms may not be as common as organic farms, the number continues to rise. According to Demeter International, biodynamic farms worldwide increased by more than 47% between 2000 and 2018. In 2019, there were 118 biodynamic certified farms in the U.S., including 2 in Nebraska. Right now, there are about 140 certified biodynamic farms, Lindquist said, and we are looking forward to more sustainable growth. After returning to Scottsbluff in 2010, Coram and her husband, Nathan, started a biodynamic seed company. Their farm, Meadowlark Hearth, received a biodynamic certification 1 year later. They now own 540 acres of land with 150 acres designated as a nature reserve to encourage the biodiversity of plant and animals. Coram sell their produce at farmers markets was a community supported agro for CSA, where consumers purchase produce shares. At the beginning of the year, Lindquist and his wife also used farmers markets and CSA. However, more recently they have used email lists and grocery stores. So yeah, guys, just another really, really cool story. Of biodynamic farms. Let's just keep it rolling here, guys. Keep the movement rolling. Let's get excited about this stuff. Whenever I read an article like this, I just get super giddy. I get super hyped. I get all hypey. You know what I mean? Because this is the key here. This is the key. Is educating yourself and educating others and taking care of business. You know what I mean, guys? Getting excited about it. So I hope to eventually one day get a biodynamic farm up and running. If I ever become lucky enough to eventually own my own home and get my own little piece of land, I am definitely going to use it to the best of my ability and verse myself in as many different agricultural educations as I can. Wow. Lots of talking on these. I don't know how all these podcasters do it. So, totally cool, guys. Again, continue to check out all that insanely cool research on biodynamic farms. So, we're going to move on to the final stage of our Eros and the Eshkatan talk from Terrance Mckenna, the legend, the man, the myth, the guru. So, again, I think another huge way that we're going to heal the world and heal ourselves is through psychedelics, specifically psilocybin mushrooms. It can help reduce trauma. It can help treat depression. It can give you a new outlook on life as far as boundary disillusionment and connectedness and increase in empathy and reduction in apathy. The amount of positives that come from learning about psilocybin and growing mushrooms in general, not even psychedelic mushrooms, is just absolutely fascinating. So let's continue to spread the word. Let's get excited. The best person that I know in the world that uses language and words to preach this gospel is Terrance Mckenna. So we're going to go ahead and continue here from this 1995 talk that we left off on last week. So, in the early stage of the psychedelic involvement, everyone was sort of flying under the banner, in the hands of Freudianism or the hands of Jungianism. Quote, we're going to see those archetypes and we're going to confront those sexual repressions. We're going to journey into those traumatic childhood memories. Now, it's understood, I think, that those metaphors were fairly inadequate and that actually we stand on the brink of an unexplored landscape of planetary size. The world of the high Paleolithic, which is a Gaian world, a world of feeling, not analytical, intellectual constructs, but a world empowered by feeling, empathy, and intuitive understanding. an understanding that doesn't arrive in the context of Greek logic, but in the context of animal knowing and the authentic mode of the body. So, just to bring it all around here, the great exhibit which we must always keep in front of ourselves and our cities is the mystery of human mind and the human body. No one knows how it is that I can command a... come on. Let's... This Discord is just blowing up here, guys. Sorry about that. So... That's a violation of every scientific principle in the books, and yet it's the most trivial experience that any of us have. We expect to command our body. We expect to... This is insane here, guys. Let me reduce these notifications. Oh, Discord. Get the notifications out of here, please. Okay. So, mind over matter here, guys. Say, what? Mind over matter? That's the violation of every scientific principle in the books, yet it's the most trivial experience that any of us have. We expect to command our body. We expect the mental will to order the monkey flesh into action, and it will follow. The body is the nexus of mystery of our life. Our culture takes us out of body and sells our loyalty in political systems, into religion, into inanimate objects, and machines, collections, so on and so forth. The felt experience of the body is what the psychedelics are handing back to us. That's why it's called escape, because it's escape from HBO, from walking the mall, from seeing what's on the tube, from consuming the trash media. It's an escape from all of that into the authenticity of the body. This is why sexuality is so edgy in this society. They made it illegal. If they'd make it illegal if they could but figure out how. It's the one drug that they can't tear from our grip, so they lay a guilt trip on us about it. And now this right here is so true. So true, it's not even funny. But sexuality and psychedelics, by carrying us back to the authentic sense of the body, carry us back to the domain of authentic values. More and more, the message that people are getting as they avail themselves of the psychedelic experience is that it is not a journey into the human unconscious or in the ghost burrows of a chaotic civilization. It's a journey into the presence of the Gaian mind, that the earth is a coherent whole. It is thinking, feeling, and intending being that in terms of our value structures, it would be foolish to imagine anything other than female. When cultural values created by male dominance, science, literary, and so forth and so on, when those values are dissolved, what is waiting there is the incredible poignant experience of the matrix, what James Joyce called the mama matrix most mysterious, nothing more than our bodies and the earth out of which our bodies came. History as we have lived it in the West has been a turning of our back on that. Now history has failed. Western cultural institutions have become global cultural institutions, now show themselves to be inadequate to inspire, lead, or carry anyone into a future worth living in. At this moment, then, this reconnecting to the Gaian mind becomes a kind of moral imperative. So this whole drug issue is not an issue of even criminal syndicates or about untaxed billions or about the mental health of our youth or about any of that malarkey. I mean, my God, the most destructive known to the species peddled on every street corner without restriction. Yeah, I mean, it's alcohol, guys. That's the one culturally accepted drug, and it's the most destructive of the species in the world. So it tells you all you need to know about why cannabis and psilocybin mushrooms are still illegal. The real issue is what kind of mental world shall people inhabit? What kind of hope shall be permitted? What kind of value system should be allowed? The value systems that aggrandize the possession of things, the tearing up of the earth, competition, classism, racism, sexism, have led us to the brink of catastrophe. Not to the brink. I would argue that he said this in 1995. So we are now in 2023. We are at the catastrophe mark. It's here. It's here. This is 30 years later. Every other day is a new disaster, catastrophe. It's only a matter of time before the big one hits and it becomes irreversible. So we have to do everything we can to spread the word and everything we can every day to reverse this anti-earth sentiment that we've had for millennia. So continuing on here. Now, I think that we have to abandon Western cultural values and return to the deeper wisdom of the body in connection with the plants. That's the seamless web that leads us back into the heart of nature. If we can do this, then this very narrow neck of cultural crisis can be navigated. Very little of the past can be saved. The architectonics, the machines, the system of monetary exchange, the propaganda, the silly religions, the asinine aesthetic canons, very little of any of that can be saved. What can be saved is the sense of love and caring mutually that we have put into and take from the human enterprise. You know, there's a Grateful Dead song that says, "You can't go back and you can't stand still. If the thunder don't get you, then the lightning will." We know, we now hold through the possession of these psychedelics catalysts for the human imagination of sufficient power that if we use them, we can deconstruct the lethal vehicle that is carrying us towards the brink of the apocalypse. We can deconstruct that vehicle and redesign it and modify it and restore it into the kind of starship that would carry us and our children into the broad starry galaxy we know to be awaiting us out there. But it's a cultural test. Nature is pitiless. Intelligence is a grand experience upon which a great deal has been risked. But if it proves inadequate, nature will cover it over with the same kind of cool impunity that she covered over the dinosaurs with, the tribolites and the crossopterygian fishes, Pythagorean fishes, and all those other folks that came before us. So what we must do, I think, is see our future in the imagination, catalyze the imagination, form symbiotic relationships with the plants, affirm archaic values, and spread the good news that what is out of control, what is in fact dying, is a world that had become too top-heavy with its own hubris, too bent on its own false value systems, too dehumanized to care about what happened to its own children. So I say good riddance to it, bring on the archaic revival, and let's create a new world, and that's it. I mean, amazing. Terrance puts into words as if he was the greatest mind poet of all time, what I feel like I've been feeling since I was a child, and I think so many others feel as well. He just so eloquently assembles these lectures that it's insane. So we're gonna end it there, guys. I'll leave you on that note with that beautiful Terrance lecture. So thanks so much for tuning in, guys. I appreciate it. Make sure you like and subscribe. Keep living that green revolution, y'all. Get excited about it. And we will see you next time. Bye.